Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniX TCG, and like I said before, I was going to try to rotate my games on a just daily basis to make sure that I can make everybody feel at home, no matter what game you came to this channel for. So yesterday was Dragon Ball Super, today is going to be Battle Spirit Saga, tomorrow will be One Piece, and we'll just make sure that everything that we do on this channel gets that equal spreading of love. All that I ask from you guys is that if you do like the channel and you want to support it, even if you don't like the card game, just maybe drop by and leave a like, you know, like if you feel like going the extra mile, maybe leave a comment, let it run in the background muted, just so it gets the playtime and so that all of the videos, you know, hit that algorithm well, and that'll just allow the channel to grow and flourish and get to a lot more people. So with that being said, if you haven't already, this will be a great time to like this video. Go down, click the subscribe button, join the UniX fam if you haven't already. Maybe even press the notif button so you never miss a beat. You can also join us on the Discord. You can just follow me on Twitter, Instagram, lots of different ways to see lots of different content. Some of those are kind of just more loose with the stuff I put up on there. So yeah, lots of stuff to do. And past that, we are going to jump into the subject matter. We've got a top 4 deck list from a recent 1K for Battle Spirit Saga. It is being piloted by the best player I know for this game. His understanding of the game is like actually just on another level, and it helps me stay in the loop even when I am busy trying to juggle 3 card games. It's literally the main reason why I can even play Battle Spirit Saga to any competitive capacity. So with that being said, I am going to move into the other view. We're going to introduce him, show you the deck he top 4'd with, and it was a top 4 split. He went undefeated throughout the entire case event, or $1,000 event, 1K, and then the top 4 ended up splitting. So yeah, let me hop over to that, and I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so we are here with our guest. You've seen him on the channel before. We've got Amani, and he actually just broke some major ground on the release weekend of Battle Spirit Saga. So why don't you reintroduce yourself and let them know what you did?
Oh, this is where I come in? Hi, everybody. Name is Amani. I've been pretty regular around here on Chris's YouTube. I appreciate whenever he has me on. He vastly overestimates me. I appreciate him. I'm just okay. So I play purple in this game. It's pretty much the only color I know how to play. And it gets a lot of negative rep. A lot of people don't seem to really believe in it. I think the truth is that it's very tricky to play. It doesn't have a lot of like very strong generic cards, if you will. There are some here and there's, but a lot of them are combo oriented, and they're relatively easy to deal with for some of the more powerful colors. The scaling on their VPs aren't very great. Their reductions are relatively average, so it can be a little tricky to play. But I do think that it's certainly my favorite color to play. It's my favorite color, period. But I think it's an excellent color to play in competitive. So I'm just gonna go over the deck really quick. 51 cards in the main and standard side deck. So first, get these out of the way. So I played 1 Soul Core and then 20 standard.
I'm tired of you.
Personally, I think 1 Soul Core is kind of like mandatory, but 20 standard cores I think is the number to go. Don't argue with me on that. I'm not changing that. So 21 cores total. And then we'll get into the main deck here. So it's in order from lowest drop spirits into nexuses into, what are they called in this game? Magic cards. So we'll start with the 4 of Almighty Lord Camelot Knight. So purple's mechanic, like its unique color mechanic, is Curse, and Curse is basically it kills the card that's blocking at the end of the battle, regardless of the BP. So it's a pretty powerful mechanic. It doesn't select, so it does ignore specific defense mechanisms like armor, for example. So Camelot Knight gains Curse whenever it has a Soul Core. It's just a 1 cost. It has a 1 reduction, so it's free. Relatively small stats, primarily just here as a good Curse and a good small body. Excellent card. I think it's pretty much like always a 4 of for my purple. So Lord Knight can go there. For Dragon Naga, so this is the card that I ideally want to start attacking with as pretty much as early as possible, because this card here, it's a level 2 curse, but at level 3, when it attacks, if it has a soul core, you draw a card. So a lot of purple's effects, especially in the early game, are going to be kind of soul core heavy, so balancing your soul core is going to be a little tricky at times, but if one card got priority on attack for soul core, it would pretty much always be this one, because this one draws a card when it attacks, and then when it's at 3 markers at level 3, it's also 4,000 BP, so that's really good for keeping it out of range of Burning Force. So I really like to have this card at 4. For Dark Knights. So this one is not played in 4 as often. For me, I think this is probably the best turn 1 play you can make going first. So like the name of the game here in Battle Spirits is Reduction. And I think that it's heavily undervalued how important it is that you can stick reductions to the board. So a card like this, when it has a soul core on it, if it's destroyed, you draw a card. And at level 2, it has Curse. It's a very small card, very simple, very good reduction, so it can come out for as cheap as 1 in the mid game. But like for the turn 1 play, this is a really annoying card to kill, because like it inherently doesn't give your opponent any value to remove it. So like if you had to pick a card to get sticky reduction, this is probably one of your stickiest reductions. Like this card almost always nets value on turn 1. Versus like Dragon Naga, for example, which I don't see why you would have a problem killing a dragon. They're the same stats, same number of cores, but this card doesn't do anything when it dies, and it does everything when it lives. This card's like the opposite, so I like to play this one on turn 1 instead of this one, because my opponent doesn't usually go out of the way to kill this card, and I get reduction. Reduction is so important. And then for Beldergore, so this is one of the most powerful purple cards, I think. This one here has Immortal, which is the only card in set 1 with Immortal. Costs 4 or 5. So basically, whenever a 4 or a 5 cost spirit dies during either player's attack step, I can summon this from the discard pile by paying its cost. And of course, its reduction will still apply. So it's either a 3 cost or a 2 cost from the discard pile. So when it's summoned, it KOs an exhausted spirit with a cost of 4 or less. So it's very powerful, both as an attacker and as a defender. It is a very good combo card in the deck, because a lot of the cards in that deck are 4s and 5s in that mid game. So it's particularly good because it can be summoned at any time during the attack step. So that means it can be summoned in Flash Window 1 and used to block. It can be summoned at any time in the attack step and kill an attacker if possible. It can be summoned at any time and then attack if you summon it in your attack step. So it has a lot of versatility, and it is a 4K on 3 markers, so that's pretty important here, because that avoids the staple 4 of Burning Force, which a lot of purple cards are not good at doing, and a lot of other cards in this deck just don't do very well. So I tried to play quite a few of those. So into my 4 drops, play 4 of Cavalier here. Also for the same reason, this is one of the only ones that gets above 3K with only 2 cores on it. And this one is a win, summon, draw card. Now, looking at Belder, looking at Cavalier, and then going into some of the later game cards, a lot of purple's abilities are win summoned abilities. It's very difficult to play purple without taking the risk of using win summoned abilities. It triggers a lot of different bursts, most notably the infamous Starblast Draw, which is a very powerful card against your deck. There's not a lot you can do about that. If you're going to play purple, you pretty much accept that that is the reality of your color. You are going to run into win summon burst triggers, so at the very least, just be mindful of that. There's really not a lot of getting around it, because those are your best effects. This one just draws a card when it's summoned, but it's static very well. Reduction is relatively good, and obviously it's a Valdergore target when it dies. So it's a very handy card to play 4 of it. The other 4 drop is the 3 Earth Spider Demon. So like where I think Dark Knight is the best card to start off with on turn 1, I think Earth Spider Demon is my best card going second to start with, especially if my opponent starts off with a standard 3-costed spirit. Which is not unusual because they only have 4 cores. Sometimes they'll go with like a Nexus on turn 1, but very commonly I catch a person pay 3 cores, play at 3 cost, and then put a core on it, and I get to take that core. Earth Spider Demon, he costs 4, and when he attacks, if he has a soul core, he removes a core from a spirit. So this is good because this is like the second half of a lot of my core control combos, but this is also just a very good early game control card. It allows you to apply pressure and control reductions by picking off very small spirits. And it also stats up to 4,000 at 3 cores. So very nice, and a Belder target as well if he happens to get caught lacking. Three Mordreds. This is one I played at 4 for a long time, but as the format kind of shifted into less control-y and a little bit more aggro, I had to kind of cut down on this card because it can be very expensive. A lot of my deck building, I want to be mindful of how many cards I have to play basically for full cost, because in a lot of cases you will find your board clear, especially against red decks. They're very effective at clearing spirits and nexuses. And if you're playing aggros, you don't really have time to set up nexuses, and you're going to lose a lot of spirits in the defense. So you just have to kind of be mentally prepared to play a lot of your cards for full cost. So with that being said, I just couldn't afford 4 of a card that costs 5 out of the hand and then takes a core just to maintain. That's kind of expensive. But so this went down to 3, but I still wanted to keep at least 10 targets for Valdergore, so 4, 3, and 3. This is a pretty good when summoned. It takes 2 cores off of an exhausted spirit. And then if it's level 2 or higher, when it attacks, it removes a core off of any spirit. So it stats to 4,000 at 3 cores. The statting on this card is horrible. Like, it's a 1 core 3k, then you allocate 2 more cores to get it to 4k, then you can allocate 2 more cores to get it to 6k. Like, it's really pitiful stats. But the utilities and the effect, it's 2 reductions, so it can be 3 at the least. It's very poorly statted. But the ability kind of more than makes up for it. And the Belder target, of course. Into the late game now. We have 3 of the Dark Bishop. This is another one that I was playing at 4 for a long time that I had to come back to 3 because of the heavy aggro. This is one that I don't prefer to have at 3. Like, I would like to play it at 4 because it's a very, very strong card. It is the core control combo starter for the deck, if you will. When you play it, you remove all the cores on all of the spirits in play, except 1. So every spirit resets to 1 core. Because it's a blanket effect, it doesn't select, so it does go through armor. So that's very cool. It can reduce to as low as a 4 cost. So it's about a mid-tier cost. It starts off at 4k, 3 cores to 6, 5 cores to 9. Not particularly impressive statting, but for what he does, he always gets the job done. Right? Then once you use him, easy cleanup with something like Mordred or Spider Demon or several combos that go with it. So it is a necessary card, I think. I just didn't have space for 4 of it. 2 Pentacles. So this one reduces to 4. It's an open 7 cost, and this one is kind of like Bishop, except it only targets 1 card. When you play it, you choose 1 spirit and reduce its cores to 1. And then it has the second effect like Mordred, that when it attacks, it takes a core off of anything, except it will trash the core this time. So there are only 2 cards that actively trash the core when it removes it. And that's Pentacles and Core Theft. There are a couple of other ones, but those are the 2, I would say, playable ones, if you will. So it's important to note that it does trash the core. So that's pretty cool. It is the only hard removal, if you will, in a single card. Like, every other card generally requires combo to remove, or has restrictions. This card can just kind of openly touch any card, active or exhausted, and take its cores to 1, and then attack to take its cores to 0. So I did think that was important to have, at least on hand. But just the 2 of it, it's not crazy powerful, and it stats pretty poorly. So it's basically weaker than Bishop, if you will. It goes to 7k at 4 cores. Like, that's, you know, it's pitiful. But again, the utility in the card is more important. And then you have the very, very top end with the 3 Infernal King Curse Dragon. Also a card that I played at 4 at one time that I had to cut back quickly because this one is an 8 cost and it only reduces to 5. This one's pretty much always expensive. It more than makes up with it for it with its own ability, especially in combination with Bishop. As most people know, this is the board clear combo. This is one of the very few complete and total board clears through just about anything. There is only 1 card that prevents the removal of cores inherently, which is Ice Mayfella. And outside of that, every other card currently is susceptible to this combo. So when the Cursed Dragon is summoned, he removes 1 core off of everybody in play and reserves it. Any spirit who dies as a result of that, whose cores reaches 0, for each one that reaches 0, you will then put an additional core on this card from the void. So it's kind of like a very strong ramping effect. It is a very, very powerful board clear. Its level 2 ability almost never comes up, but it's basically like Pentacles. When you attack, you reduce all the cores except one on a card. So that doesn't usually happen since the combos are full board clear. And its stats 6k for one, 3 more cores will put it to 9k, which is, if that's as high as this deck can go, that is really not anything to brag about. But that's, again, not what you play it for. So you'll notice very quickly in just the spirit line, there's a lot of utility effects, there's a lot of combo effects, not just raw, powerful, generic abilities. So, you know, so be it, right? Into the nexuses, we've got the 3 purple smoke valleys. So this one here is a very easy early game, pretty much always pre-reduction. The only time it's removed is in a red deck because they have excess nexus removal, cheap costed nexus removal to get full reductions on it. So like if they're playing Andromeda, this is a pretty easy removal for Andromeda. This card is almost never worth playing Burning Force against, especially if you're not getting full reduction on Burning Force. It's almost a waste. So this card is almost like near guaranteed permanent reduction, which is huge for purple. Its own ability, whenever a spirit reaches 0 cores by one of your skills, you'll draw a card. So there are a lot of skills that can do that. Most of the time it takes 2 cards to do it, so it's not really inherent plus value. It just kind of gives you a little bit of extra boost, but more often than not, it's just there as the free inherent reduction, because reduction is so important. Its second ability comes up very rarely, but if you have 2 cores on it, your curse cards can't be blocked by spirits that only have 1 core on them. So that's pretty cool because like you do have a card that reduces everybody's cores to 1. So you can in fact push a tempo play and have several curse cards unblockable for the turn. So it's pretty cool that you're able to do that, though that doesn't often win games. It is just a handy skill to have on board. Like Smoke Valley is on board once it's on board. You could do it at any time if you see the opportunity. And then the obvious Netherworld Depths is the other Nexus. One of the other cards I used to play aggressively at 4 that I had to reduce to 3. Nexus removal is everywhere in this format because Nexuses are so powerful. Never mind the fact that they're permanent reduction, but a lot of the Nexuses, especially the ones over 4, have extremely powerful effects. Red is even fortunate enough to have multiple 4-costed Nexuses that are very powerful. But once they get over 4, they start to get kind of crazy, and this one I think is the craziest one. So it's a 6 cost with a 3 reduction. You draw a card whenever one of your opponent's spirits are exhausted, for any reason whatsoever. When you're attacking and they block, when they're attacking, whatever causes them to exhaust, you'll draw a card each time. So, I mean, that just has potential to draw massive amounts of cards. They do stack, so if you play multiple Netherworlds, it will be multiple cards per exhausted spirit. It is important to note that they are mandatory, so you do want to be careful about that when you stack multiple Netherworld Depths, especially if your opponent plays counter cards to draw. They are mandatory, so you do have to draw each time a spirit exhausts. And the second ability during your attack step, if it has 3 cores on it, whenever one of your spirits is blocked, you can remove a core from it, and then you'll destroy the blocking spirit at the end of the battle step. So it basically gives curse to any of your attackers, except it doesn't matter what happens to the attacker. The Netherworld Depths will trigger on the block, and it'll resolve at the end of the battle. So that's very cool. That just kind of gives curse to everybody so that you can break through very heavy defensive board states. And that's it for the Nexuses. We'll go into the spells. So we'll start, ironically, all of my high cost spells are non-purple, so the purple spells first. So 3 Deadly Balance and 1 Core Theft. These were the only purple spells I played. I went back and forth on these, I think, more than anything else in the deck. I played Core Drain, then I didn't play Core Drain. I played 2 Core Thefts, then I played 1, then I played 4 Deadly Balances, and so ultimately this is the number that I went around the most of. I settled on 3 Deadly Balance, 1 Core Theft, no Core Drains. I like the 1 Core Theft as a flash card because it trashes cores. It can be very useful as just a one-of target. It is mostly for white because it can remove cores on Elk and it can remove cores on Elephant in the most opportune moments against your opponent, like when they put the 4 cores in the elephant, they go and attack with it, and they attack with their whole board, and you're like, okay, well, drain the elephant core so that they don't reset the board. That's happened more times than I can count. Obviously, it's a spot removal for Elk before Elk gets into the block step, because once it blocks, it's invulnerable, and it's difficult to deal with it in the normal, traditional sense, because there's no reason to exhaust it until it blocks, and once it blocks, it's unable to be dealt with. So it can be difficult to deal with that way. So Core Theft is handy there. Other than that, you have to discard a card for each core you want to remove using it. So you're not really taking big, heavy, high-costing spirits off the board with it. More often than not, you are controlling levels. That's where the card really kind of shines. You can take a core or 2 off of a card, discard a Beldergore if you can, discard something useless, and control the level of a card. Right in the middle of a battle, take an ability from a card right before a defense or right before an attack step, and that helps tremendously. But that doesn't come up often enough to justify the amount of cards you discard to play more than one of it. Deadly Balance, on the other hand, is the other main flash spell. Both of them can reduce to 1. Core Theft is a 4 with 3 reduction. Deadly Balance is a 3 with 2 reduction. So they're relatively cheap. This one says that your opponent selects a spirit, and then you select a spirit, and you destroy both spirits. It's important to note that your opponent will select the spirit first. It does come up every so often that whichever spirit they choose can impact the spirit that you choose, but more often than not, it doesn't, right? Like, you have very easy targets. You have your Dark Knight, which usually draws a card. You have your Valdergore, which recycles itself from the grave. You have all your 4 and 5 costs, which trigger Valdergore and the flash step. It is a do as much as you can, so you can play it when you have no spirits in play and your opponent still has to KO a spirit. So that's really cool. It's just an easy, flexible removal, hard removal in a deck that really lacks that. And then all of the other color spells. So obviously the 4 Absolute Ice Shield. Now there's a lot of discussion, heavy controversy over how many of these cards a deck should play. Some people don't play any, some people play 1 or 2 or 3 and they justify it. I am not here to tell you, well, how many Ice Shields you should be playing. I'm here to tell you that I am always going to play 4 Ice Shields until I'm no longer able to play 4 Ice Shields. The simple existence of this card changes the tempo of a game. And any player who really has the fundamental understanding of battle spirits understands the tempo is basically how the game is going. So if you don't have Ice Shields, you can't play as aggressively. You have to play very meticulous on defense. If you don't have a defense, then you will just lose the game. If you don't have as many blockers as your opponent has attackers, it can become that simple to lose the game. You know, I have 1 life, he has 2 attackers, I have 1 blocker. I die. You know, or if I have 2 life and he has 3 attackers and I have 1, I'm dead. All it becomes is a simple game of counting the number of spirits that can sideways. That's not very good. When you're on attacking, you have to leave spirits up to defend yourself. You have to pray your opponent doesn't have removal. It's so easy to punish a player who is not playing Ice Shields. It's so easy to punish an overextender into an Ice Shield, and it's so much easier to win a game when you see Ice Shields and your opponent doesn't. I mean, it's just try playing with Ice Shields and then try playing without Ice Shields and give your opponent the knowledge if you really want to challenge yourself and see how different the tempo goes if the player understands. I'm always going to play for it. Maximizes the opportunity to see them. It gives you the opportunity to see them multiple times. Seeing Ice Shield 4 times means that they are almost guaranteed 4 additional turns from the turn you should die. I don't feel like that should be underestimated. I don't even feel like that needs to be explained. That's a very simple concept to understand. The 4 turns past the turn you should have lost, where you will still be playing. And if your opponent sees no Ice Shields in that time, that's 4 additional turns you can secure a win where you should have lost. 4 times. So there you go. Oh, I guess for anybody who doesn't know what it does, it's a burst. When you lose life, you restore a life from your reserve, and then it has a flash spell. You can pay 4 for it, and when that attack is over, when that battle ends, the attack step ends. So it completely stops your opponent's attack step once that battle ends. You do have to be able to take a damage in order to use it. If you're at 1 life, you will lose immediately. You can't trigger the burst. So that's important to note. Other than that, go crazy. Long as you don't go to 0 life, Ice Shield saves you for another turn. One Dream Bomb. This was one of the last minute additions. This is my 51st card. I put this Dream Bomb in just because I wanted to have an answer to White's Elephant. I wanted to have a main deck answer to Ice May Fulla that didn't require me to have some meticulous planning of a game state where maybe it's the only card in play and I can deadly balance it, or maybe my opponent attacks with it and I can Belder. Normal game states, if you're playing against purple and you're playing Ice May Fulla and you play her and you put 4 cores on her, she never leaves the board. Whoever has the soul core from that moment forward is immune to every card in my deck. I don't like to play that way. It's really hard. So I put the One Dream Bomb in primarily for that. It is a little expensive, but it has multiple uses. It's good at stifling aggro. It is a Nexus removal if you burst it, so that's pretty handy. I have bursted it on many players who've set up their big Nexuses that turn. Like in the mirror match, a purple player will go Netherworld Depths and then they'll attack me and I'm like, yeah, no block, take a damage for the Dream Bomb, bounce the Netherworld. Then I get free reign on them because it took them their turn to play that. But more often than not, it's a flash removal that is really good against white decks and really good against Seaguar Nova, which I have no other answer to unless I get lucky and 2 or 3 card combo it. And then the last cards are the obvious 2 on Burning Force. Most decks, if not all decks, are playing in some capacity a number of Burning Forces because it is the only generic Nexus removal you can really count on, since its other ability kills 2 spirits with a battle power of 3,000 or less as a flash. So it's handy for board control in all elements. And as a result of that, it really has no downside to playing unless you run into a deck that's immune to it, like, ironically, its own color, for example. Red has the least valuable targets for Burning Force. So in most cases outside and out there, it's not particularly great against white unless they're being cheeky. Maybe they'll main deck Netherworld Depths because white doesn't draw a lot of cards on its own. Ooh. But other than that, not too many targets there. Primarily it's for just to make sure Netherworld Depth stays off the board. It is a real different game when your opponent gets free reign of Netherworld versus when they don't. Especially for colors who have to pay full cost for it. It's just totally value. And it keeps some aggro decks in check, because aggros go crazy. So that's 51 cards. There's the main deck. Very straightforward purple deck. It's set 1. There really aren't a whole lot of different cards to choose from, so I do feel like this purple build is a simple mid-range balance between core control and curse. I think those are the 2 identifying qualities of purple this set. So if you're going to play purple, you lean into those. Aren't a lot of generic cards, as I said, so if you're not playing the combos, you should probably just play another color. Onto the Sky deck, 3 Angelic Pressure. This is also for Ice May Fulla because this is the only card that can hit her through Enterprise. You have to play more than 1 in case the Ice May player puts 4 cores down, even under Enterprise, because then it'll become 5,000 power. This minuses power by 3,000 as a main or flash. It's a 3 cost. It also works on most other white cards. Everything under Enterprise is vulnerable to yellow, so it's good for controlling power. It's good if you're playing against red decks that play a lot of confronts because they will kill your cards often. And you can't really use Nexuses against red decks, so in most cases I'll side out some of my Nexuses to put in Angelic Pressures. You can't really use Burning Force against them because they get reduction and you don't, and it just doesn't make sense. Like if they play Volcanic Canyon for 2 or Scorched Battlefield for 2, you're not going to pay 5 to Burning. That doesn't make sense. And you can't hit any of their spirits because they gain power. So this doesn't feel valuable there. I prefer to just put this one in there. But I sided that after every game 1 because I was pretty much expecting everyone to side Ice Maid. Why not turn off half of my deck if you have the option to? So sided a second Dream Bomb for a similar reason. This one only came in ideally if I were playing against white decks because this is very good for removing cards without killing them. So this is a very good answer to Elephant. This is a very good answer to Elk. Especially when
all my homies hate
Numengard. Especially when Numengard's at level 2 and it's gonna reset board and you can Dream Bomb it on the flash step. Very cool. If Elk is already blocking, especially when they suppression Elk and then it blocks everything, then you just be like, all right, Dream Bomb it, and then it's back to not being there, and you can probably win the game right there. Stuff like that. Only white decks do crazy things like that. It's very hard to kill them with cards that kill cards, so you kind of just got to get a little more creative. And the one other instance is if you play against a purple deck and they're using the 8-drop Trio Queen. What's its name? Can you? Yeah, I'm not gonna call it that. That sounds like Maduki. I'm not calling it.
Yeah.
We so her name is Trio Queen, or Queen. She's a queen. And I'll cite it there because like it's just infinitely simpler to deal with her that way than to try to, I don't know, kill her or play through Blood Curse. Like, why? I had 3 Dynamants here. This one was for anti-aggro. It's just a 3-cost card that when you have 2 or less spirits in play, it's always a level 3. So it's like a 3-cost 6,000 power. This is particularly good if I'm playing against red because this kind of stops them from killing all of my purple cards with Confront and or just rushing past me. It was very good against white aggro as well because I'm sure considering that they're aggro decks, they get kind of wide, but they don't get very big. So you really do have to play a little differently when you have to consider the fact that you may in fact lose one of your attackers to a block and then lose the rest of your board in the process of dealing, I don't know, a damage. That doesn't seem very forward, if you will. It only costs 3, so it's very easy to play. Like it didn't go out of the way or anything like that. You play it on the first turn when you see it, and you know it stifles aggro. Cited 2 counter swords, primarily for Seaguar Nova. The 1 in 1 billion chance I ran into Michaela, but that's it. Just Seaguar Nova. Star Dragon becomes a much harder matchup if you actually allow Seaguar Nova to resolve its full ability. The restore life to 5 thing you can't do anything about. I don't really care about that. It's the when I attack, all of your purple cards die, because imagine purple having more than 10,000 PP. We went over that. So it kills everything, and then you play full reduction after they just fully restore their life and big banged out half their hand, and you're like, what do I do? I don't want to play that game. So counter sword, when they play Seaworm by tributing Seaworm, of course they're going to get their life back, but at least you can bounce the Seaworm and not get your entire board cleared and almost auto lose the game. And then 1 Enterprise was my 10th card. Also for red primarily, it gives you armor red, purple, yellow. The only way red can deal with it in most game states is to confront it, which if you have any other spirit in play, they don't usually get to confront this. If they do confront it, it's a 12,000 power with 4 cores. It blocks and then untaps itself, so like it's not the easiest thing to deal with. They will find some way to kill it if they confront it, so don't get comfortable just blocking with it, because they will kill it. But as long as they don't force it to block, you're immune to all of their spells and skills, and that tremendously increases your game state. I also sided against white because that's one of the few matches where you will go and find yourself tapping 8 for a white card, putting a core on it, not dying the very next turn, and you just will see so many cores. You get to do things like that. So if you go Dragon Ship against their Enterprise, you're playing Mirror Match Enterprise, but you get Netherworld Depths, you get Curse. If they don't have Ice Maid, you get Bishop and Curse Strike. Like, you have ways to deal with theirs. Them, they don't have as many ways to deal with yours. So there you go. Side deck was easy. 51 cards in the main deck. I did only have 60 double sleeves, so poor Enterprise is in a single sleeve because Star Dragon was the matchup I saw the least of. Even though I did play, 3 white decks back to back to back, quite literally. I didn't have to side Enterprise after round 3, so I just took it out of the double sleeve.
Fair enough, fair enough. And so you said you went undefeated, and then you won your top cut matches until you guys all split. How many matches were in Swiss?
Just 4. So it was a 24 person turnout. Like, it wasn't huge. It is the date after the game's released, so the turnout was determined by a few different things. Like, some people were expecting more people. I expected right around 20-ish players, and some people were expecting less. It wasn't a lot of people who both knew the game, wanted to travel, and simultaneously had all the cards. Like, it's kind of a triangle that if you didn't go to Vegas, you're almost always disqualified from playing at max efficiency, unless you drop the band. Pull rates, I'm sure people are starting to realize pull rates are very weird in this game. You can in fact buy quite a lot of product and still be missing very crucial cards, cough cough, Ice Shield. So some people were playing at, less than max effective. Some people were just playing something because they were nearby. Other people had no idea how to play at all, or were still learning the game. A lot of the players were transitioning from another game. There was a lot of factors involved here. It was a well-run event, no issues there. I played 4 rounds. I played a Star Dragon round 1, and then I played 2 white controls, and then I played a white aggro. All of my opponents were very nice. Some of them were still learning the game. The white aggro player in particular was very fun. His name's Matt. He was very fun to play against. He was very good with his white aggro deck, but he didn't play any ice shields. So he kind of just had to all-in me every time, and I just happened to have the card each time he went for the all-in. He almost killed me every game. So he played very well. And then in top 8, I had to play Alex. He was playing Pterosaur again. He modified it a little bit, he said, to not be as targeting to purple, so I had a bit more of a chance. Our games were extremely close. I got very lucky at the end because I dead drew like twice in a row, and he had board state, and he had double Scorched Battlefield, but he went kind of low on cards in hand. So he went to attack me, and I flipped an Ice Shield, and then I drew another Ice Shield right off the top. Cough, play 4 Ice Shields, people. And he attacked me, and I just happened to be able to Ice Shield, and I had the Bishop Curse combo. And he Star Blast drew 1,000,000 cards, and he didn't draw his Ice Shield. Cough, play 4 Ice Shields, people. So, you know, very convenient because he didn't see a lot of Ice Shields prior to that. He really had every right to draw it and just win the game, but he didn't. So I'll take my win wherever I get it. Excellent player, and I was happy to have been able to pull that out. We did split top 4, I'll be honest with you. The other 3 players were mighty nice. I don't think I would have pulled this rabbit out of the hat 2 more times, so I'm more than happy for my split.
The modesty here.
It was a great event. I had fun. It was a few-hour drive. It was guaranteed prizing. The booster box is the place. It's in Virginia Beach. If you're nearby, check it out. It's a very nice, open, cool environment. Nice size shop. It doesn't smell like old stale potato chips or 50-year-old card games. It's relatively new. It's vibrant. It's got kiosks, so that's really cool. You can order at the kiosks. And it's a great environment. Everybody's pretty chill. The owner's very nice. He kind of looks like Mr. Potato Head, but a little lighter skinned. And they have booster bucks, so you can open packs, and they give you like store credit. Like they have denominations between 1 and like 50 that you can open a pack, and that denomination is how many dollars in store credit that card is worth. It's super, super cool. And the prizing is guaranteed. Like I wish every TO had that type of integrity. 24 people showed up. You can do your math. It was $15 entry, nowhere near $1,000, but he paid it out anyway. And I respect a player. I respect a person like that infinitely. Like he's willing to take the loss to make sure that everybody gets what they were promised, and that earns my business. Just straight up, I'll be there. It's a 3-hour drive, 3.5, and I'll go back every time.
Yep. Yeah, potentially just make sure that the next turnout is even better because people know that it's about to deliver on what it's about. So, yeah. Did you have any closing notes you wanted to put down for the deck profile? Because, like, the best part about having you on this channel is that, like, it fits really much so in line with a lot of the content I like doing. I don't really like doing, like, you know, the shallow type stuff, but you were very in-depth, and people, by the end of your deck profiles, don't know just what cards go in the deck. They also know why they went in the deck, and I think that's the most valuable part of you.
Personally, I think I talked to closing remarks, I suppose. Purple is the best color. You don't have to agree with me. It's my favorite color, so I'll be on it. I really like the way that the game is playing so far. I'll probably stick around to see how much further it goes. The prizing is very strong, so it's plenty of incentive. Most events have been cash prizing, so like there really is nothing better to play for. You can buy any other prize with cash prizing, so like there's really no argument there. And the cash prize is generous. Like you don't even have to be worried about whether or not you're gonna win. You could just look at like top cut prizing. Like if you can squeeze into 32 or 64 or something, you'll probably get a payout. Like that's really cool. So I hope they keep going with it. I'm gonna keep playing for until hopefully nothing happens to it.
True. So yeah, this is but another bit of like heavy hitting content. Very excited to be able to dive more into this game. Now that the game is actually out, we should be able to have more locals with prizing. Should be able to pull more competitive matchups to have on screen, and then you know, start showing off some of the promos and stuff in shorts and whatnot. So it's looking pretty bright, and I cannot wait to go to more of these events as they pop up. So first and foremost, I'd like to say, Amani, thank you for being on the channel again.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on the channel.
Yep, and hopefully next time I can attend one of these and give you guys some feedback of my own. Some circumstances were not exactly in my favor, but I know both of my homies that went did pretty well. Shout out to Matt as well, who actually broke top 8. So it's always good to see the boys take down the event. And yeah, past that, after this, I'm going to have a quick message from Mystic TCG, one of the best places that you could indulge in your TCG needs. And past that, you know, the video will be over. So I'll see you guys in the next one. It will be a One Piece video. Like I said before, we're rotating every single time, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. Thank you guys for showing up, and I'll see you next time. So let's talk about Mystic TCG, your one-stop shop for all your TCG needs. On the site, you can buy or pre-order plenty of sealed product for plenty of games. Just make sure though, if you're pre-ordering, to give it 3 to 4 months in advance to start looking, because sometimes the product is indeed hot, supply and demand, you know? And then if you want to buy singles, go on tcgplayer.com. There's going to be a link in the description where you can buy for the best value. And if you want to sell cards or collections, you can message them on their Facebook site so you can get the best bang for your buck on any type of way you want to buy or sell cards. And then while you're at it, you can use the code UNIXTCG at checkout to get even more of a discount. So hey, what are you waiting for? Check out Mystic TCG today.